transport anything.
That's true.
It will serve no purpose.
That's true, because in my opinion, the day we would open, we would likely have to house inmates, people out of county again.
And it's, even if we had a population of 100, say, 180, because of that classification, just because there's a bed, you can't put 3 women who come in overnight in a cell, and a cell block that has the rest of them in it. Even if there's 3 beds open, you'd have to shift them out there, so you have to have space.
Yes, you have to have some flexibility on being able to bring people in and move them around, et cetera.
Well, we'll move on to where else we've kind of been working on and then try to get input all kind of together. In November, we came forward with 6 brand new courtrooms and 3 being reutilized in the current courthouse. And we believe that those 9 courtrooms, 6 of which would have been new, would have lasted us 10, 15 years in the future. But what we've done is, through a little bit of negotiation with the county attorney, which I'll let Janet explain, is we have on this working draft a proposal to come back with 4 new technology, new courtrooms, and 4 courtrooms that would be shelled out, just like the space of the dormitory space. It would be the next expansion as the population dictated that, or the courts provided us new judges or whatnot. That would create a savings to this project of $1.275 million. And Janet, do you want to explain? We were attempting to shell out the entire 5th floor of this building. And Janet, on Monday, had some things she was concerned about that. We could have found another savings of about $600,000 should we have chosen to do that, which meant the entire 5th floor would have been for future growth, which is like this building. This building was built with 2 floors needed and the 3rd floor for future growth. It is cheaper to build it at one time and shell it out than to come on and try to add a story. Janet, you want to explain where we ended up on this and why we're there?
Right. The design calls for having courtrooms that are accessible in the new facility directly accessible to the jail through a secure elevator. So there would be 2 courtrooms on the 4th floor and 2 courtrooms on the 5th floor that would have these elevators come directly from the jail, and then have holding cells outside of the courtroom where inmates can stay with their attorneys or before they go to the courtroom, as opposed to having to bring them into the space and then walk them across the bridge with everybody else over to the old courthouse. Currently, inmates are brought in and they come in through the same back door and hallways and elevators that everybody else is on. And that was one of the security concerns with the current courthouse. So being able to have 2 courtrooms on the 4th floor and 2 courtrooms on the 5th floor that are accessible by this elevator to the jail, then we will not be having to have deputies transport inmates from the jail across the new facility or into the old facility, at least not very often, and can actually have more security then in the transporting of inmates and less staff time of having to bring them and transport and guard them the whole time they're in the courtroom. So while we will have, obviously, the secure entrances to get into the courthouse, just the transferring of inmates around the courthouse is one of the things that we were talking to people and jurors who were very concerned about having inmates just being kind of paraded through the courthouse in the current facility, and this would be one way of kind of lessening that occurring. We would be reusing 2 of the courtrooms on what's the kind of middle floor of the current courthouse, so we would have 5 courtrooms in the current courthouse and then 4 in the new courthouse, so we would have 9, and then eventually could build out the other courtrooms as we need them, and then possibly do more remodeling in the current courthouse. So is it ideal? No, because we would like to have the new courtrooms in the new facility for all of them, but this is one way of trying to reuse the courthouse in a way that kind of decreases the proposal. So, but it does keep the 4
lot of courtrooms are not taken up with criminals, isn't that correct? And you have other things going on. in
Sure,
courtrooms.
you have
So,
small claims every day, and you have
Probably four of
juvenile
those
cases.
courtrooms handle the criminal charges that are being handled.
I
Just
wouldn't,
practice.
I wouldn't say every day in the next 10 years be able to handle, we could, I think that the court administration could work on making sure most of the criminal cases are criminals. Would you agree with that, Judge Russell?
I think the more serious criminal cases certainly would be in the new part of the facility for security reasons. And this proposal meets our current space needs, it doesn't really address all of our security and accessibility needs, but as far as space needs and other courtrooms, it would meet our needs for the time being.
Right, and it's less than ideal, because what we would do is use 4 courtrooms, 2 on the 4th floor, 2 on the 5th floor, and 4 to 5 courtrooms in the current courthouse. We may actually, if we go down this path, choose to remodel a space to do that as opposed to the basement one. But regardless, 4 or 5 courtrooms in the current courthouse, they would still come through the secure entrance upstairs and across. But it is less than ideal, and I think we know that. Sure, go ahead.
An additional point is that as far as judicial resources, there is a method for the 6th district, which includes Johnson County, to obtain additional judges by moving them from less populated districts. And this has been done at least one time in the last few years. Having these additional courtrooms and an increased number of courtrooms makes it more possible for us to do that and assign additional judges to Johnson County because we'll have a place to put them. Right now, we can't assign an additional judge to Johnson County because there's no space. If we can't put them to work here, it's unlikely that we'll get that shift. But this gives us the opportunity to get more personnel resources in place.
So the 4 shelled out courtrooms, if we go down this point, could be built and whenever we need them, and whenever a judge was available, whenever we need them by the number of trials we have, or a judge is available, one at a time. We don't have to do them in pairs. So the infrastructure would be there, the building would be there, and they could come in as we needed them. But I think we have the courts and the county attorneys saying that on the day we open, that this would be better than what we have now and could fulfill their needs for now.
I want to ask Judge Russell, having more judges, to me, that seems like a benefit that people will have their cases heard quicker. Is that true?
That is true.
And might get out of jail faster? Or is that
We'll-
somewhere else?
We will
Whatever the alternative
always
is.
address bond reviews right away. So, no matter what happens with the new project, we will address that issue every day at the courthouse. But generally speaking, having additional judges means that more cases are heard sooner, both on the civil and the criminal side.
So that's a really good issue.
And court reporters, I've been told you sometimes are suffering from a lack of court reporters as much as judges, so.
As a matter of fact, we're suffering from that lack all the time, and that's something that the branch has to address on its own. It's a difficult aspect for us, but however that's resolved, more judges means quicker disposition of cases generally.
Go ahead if you want.
How does this change what would have happened in the current courthouse, or does it at all?
In the plan we brought forward in November, we were gonna reutilize 3 courtrooms. All 3 on the 2nd floor, the 3rd floor, on the top floor. So that's the floor you would come in from the other facility. In this plan, if we go down this path, we would reutilize the 3rd floor of the courthouse, and we would utilize potentially 2 or 3. There's only 2 there now on the 2nd floor, but there's a way that we could, depends on the cost, we could take the basement one and move it up and make the basement all county attorney space. I mean, that would, so that's why I said we would reutilize between 4 and 5 in the courthouse we currently have. Regardless, we would be between 8 and 9 courtrooms total, where currently we're only at 5. 6, sorry, I can't count.
So we'd be adding 2 or 3 courtrooms
We-
overall.
Right, right.
Well, and you're talking there's shared jury rooms and things like that. And so when you're talking about the, reusing those existing courtrooms, obviously some have access to jury room and some it's less convenient, but the new ones, of course, would be much better set up for a long-term jury trial, because they're fully equipped.
Dorothy, go ahead.
So the remodeling of the county attorney's office and the clerk of courts space that was gonna take up the rest of the courthouse, that just gets postponed for the time being?
Well, we were always going to pay for that out of capital funds. We were not gonna ask for that to be bonded.
Right.
So we would
If we're
continue.
using those court rooms, we can't put something else in.
Right, exactly.
So,
What would likely happen, although we haven't decided this, is Janet's staff would probably expand to the full basement, and the second and third floor would still be available to the courts.
Plus the clerk of court is,
Because they'll capture the clerk of court space.
under this proposal, the county attorney would gain a quarter of the first floor and half of the second floor.
And eventually, when we sell the old jail facility, that money would be designated to go back in and remodel the old courthouse and finish that.
All right, so I know this is a lot to handle, but if we work our way through, you'll see why we spent many hours working on this. Number 3 here is, you recall that some people thought the other one looked like a cage or something because of using all the glass. The purpose of that was to allow the glass to reflect the courthouse back. I'm not an architect, but you can help me. It's also with passive light to reduce our energy costs. We heard the message that some people really didn't like it, and there actually is a way to do it by changing the exterior. The green roof was not a for sure green roof. The environmental part like that would be a bid alternate. And it never had a flat roof, no matter what it looked like. We were not building a flat roof. And so we went back to Dwight and we said, what if we wanted to put more limestone? We didn't want it to be green and we didn't want it to be flat. And Dwight, and surprisingly, that actually comes up with cost savings. So Dwight, where are you? You want to talk? Did you bring us any pictures?
I did. Hold on.
If we make these changes, we also reduce some furniture. I'm not clear that you're all getting new desks. We would save $325,000 if we go down this route. And I want to caution everyone, I mean, this is so draft that I don't want you to like, I mean, I don't care if you take pictures of it, but we are saying draft for a reason. We actually haven't seen these photos that Dwight has now.
Well, Murphy's Law came through and their printer wouldn't work properly. So we have some small versions. You might recall that we had a view was due last time and had some favorable comments. We replaced much of the glass here with more limestone, and so at the last meeting I said, well, I'd come back with some additional views, and that's what's being passed out here. The first one shows one from above, so you can see the roof with the pitch on it now, and dark roofing on it. And on the other two, you will see views from Capitol Street. And similar to this, taking that concept around to those other sides. And I'm not sure if I brought
Not enough for everyone, but you guys can
in the
share perhaps.
gallery. So while, this is a moving target, we think we're moving in the right direction. We'll take feedback from people tonight. As it proceeds, and we can make changes still. We, in our office, continue to play with it and try to come up with less costly solution that matches the courthouse a little more.
So one thing that's not on here yet, because it's a moving target, is everyone sitting around the table knew this, but apparently we were not clear. We will not be landlocked in this project. The city, and perhaps we need to get you to pass a resolution, they're willing to vacate Harrison to to the county. And the county
They'd be glad
owns,
to get rid of it, actually.
yeah, they want the bricks, actually.
We
So
need the bricks.
you probably want to vacate it to us sooner, but we probably ought to get that done, because we all knew that. But the county also owns, what is it, basically a quarter of the next block. And we are in negotiations with the federal government on owning the entire block, perhaps with a joint project with Iowa City. So where we are is if we come forward with this project and the parts of it that are shelled out, we would believe that we would be offering a project that would meet the immediate county needs. And that we know how we would complete the project in the next 5, 10, 15 years as the county population continues to grow. And then we know in the future, which, we've seen some numbers where we can expect to grow 30,000 in the next 15 years. If that happens to Johnson County, which there's no indication that's not gonna happen, we know how this facility would expand in the future, and Dwight's going to draw that on here in some map, and that is some sort of way that would come into this hill and on the street. And so that is kind of the working plan on the facade. And it, delightfully so, it wasn't just an appearance thing. I never really liked the glass, but I think it's kind of one of those questions of whether you like that skywalk downtown Iowa City or not. It's kind of a personal preference, but changing the facade actually saves money.
So we had this plan in November, referendum, and it showed future expansion here, but it just wasn't clear to people. So we're expanding across Harrison Street into this lot that's owned by the county presently. And we will update and show how that might look so that everybody can understand. We'll update that rendering.
So, any questions about where we are here? Okay. Now, the last bullet here, number 4, is how much money the county can find through capital expenditures and capital projects. When we came to the voters in November, we knew that we could find $1.3 million as basically a down payment, if you will, on this project. With more information and 2 more fiscal years we're dealing with, the county is able to find $2.7 million as a down payment. And that will be by stretching out some of our other capital projects and also by holding our department heads and elected officials pretty tight on expenditures and demanding they turn back revenues. And so when you total all of that, you end up with a working draft of $43.5 million, which could be a ballot request, and $2.7 million of cash, which would make the total project cost $46.2 million. All right, that is the top part of this document. Then it's explained kind of in writing, 1, 2, 3, 4. You go below that, I don't know how we want to handle this. That's the project that the board is currently working as a working project. Maybe we should talk about that now before we move on to additional notes. So CJCC members, you've asked a few questions as we went along. The floor is now yours around the table.
Well, I can tell you took a lot of work into this. I mean, this shows a lot of thought, and I believe with the reduction in the amount of the bond, that's going to save them money in the long run. But I think we came so close to passing, I'm not so sure the cost was a factor. I just want to add.
Anybody else?
I guess I agree that I'm not sure the cost was a factor last time, but I think it's a gesture of goodwill on our part. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but I think it shows that we've really cut it to the bare bones, like we already had, but we have bare bones now, so, I particularly in terms of
about fees, and some things we just can't address at all. But do we have any sense of what dollar figure we need to get to like for the building meeting?
I don't think that's where we started. I mean, everybody else jumped in. Well, I think we started at is, and Sally was here on Monday, so Sally agreed with us. So there were 5 of us, and Janet and Lonnie and anyone else who was at the meeting weighed in, but multiple meetings. We started out from the point of view that the county is in a space crisis. There's no doubt about that. And that we needed another solution. And we wanted to hear from the voters again. But we didn't want to bring them the same project because we'd gotten enough sense that people said, we want you to build it for current needs, not 10 years or 15 years. And so we started from the sense of, you know, it is not great planning to build it for current needs, but we felt we had had enough feedback on that building it for 10 to 15-year needs, particularly when we're not clear where inmate population is going and whether the state's gonna fund courts better. But we wanted to keep the envelope of the building the same. We didn't want to delete a floor. I mean, we just knew that that was not financially smart in a county that's growing significantly every day. So it wasn't a dollar amount we were getting at, it was in current needs. If you open, on the day you open, exactly what would you need? Does that sum it up? So I don't think we were targeting a dollar amount as much as, let's not plan for growth. I mean, well, let's plan for it in the long run, but not plan for it on the day we open.
But there was a desire to reduce, not only reduce the size and scope in regards to the cost of the project, but there was also a desire to invest more county dollars into this, which will mean that there are other priorities within county government that are just gonna have to be on hold. And I think we heard a message from a lot of folks that said, this is the #1 priority right now, make it that. And that means there are gonna be sacrifices within county government, deferred maintenance, additional infrastructure that's just gonna have to wait right now, as we put all of our, basically our capital dollars into this project for several years.
Go ahead.
Jim McCarrier, I think it also addresses several things I heard as we were out speaking. Number one, people were concerned about the number of jail space that was there. I think this addresses that issue by reducing it somewhat. It doesn't take it down to maybe the 160 that some people wanted us to, but we were showing a significant need from 205, and now it's set at 195, which means we're still going to have days when we're going to have to ship people out. But at least I think we've taken into consideration what we've heard from people, that jail space was an important issue, so that's taken into consideration. We've heard that some people talked about the design of the building, that they didn't like the design, they didn't think that it blended with the current courthouse. And so I think we took into consideration those concerns that we heard from people. We still kept inbound, although this is talked about a lot as a spacing, it's really a safety security problem that we are addressing. This county, in its current 111-year-old courthouse, faces significant security and safety spaces. By allowing us to still connect to the new building, that helps if we're going to use the top floor to at least allow another entrance off the top floor for people, and so we can avoid the narrow staircases we currently have in the courthouse and allow better access out of the building to a safe area for the people on the upstairs floor. We're still allowing the inmate population to move directly from the jail to courts in a secured fashion. I can't tell you how many times I've heard jurors tell me that they are apprehensive about having to be placed in the same environment that the people who they are judging are in, that is having inmates pass among them as they are deciding their case. And this preserves that by allowing at least the 4 courtrooms that are in the new building to be adjacent to the secure elevator. So, and we've heard some people say they didn't like the roof because they thought it was flat, and I think this addresses it. It never was flat, but I think this clarifies that issue a lot more for people. So there are certain things I think we are able to do that this addresses. And so I think we are taking into consideration what we've been hearing from people. Can we do everything that people have said is not humanly possible for us as a board to do everything that's being requested of us? I think it certainly takes into consideration those people who were concerned about build too many spaces of jail, we're gonna arrest them. That certainly answers that question. I think we're working with people on committees that have been set up to talk about whether or not we have any problems in the kinds of arrests that are being made, are people being targeted. So I think we are working in that area, so we're addressing those concerns that we've heard. So I think this goes back to that there are a lot of things from a safety security issue that make the current environment of the courthouse a risky environment for people who take the day out of their time to serve jurors, to handle the matters that come before our county, and those people who want to handle the business of the county. So I do think that they've spent a lot of time going through all those issues, and I think it addresses a lot of the issues that I heard. You know, again, I think there's some issues that we just can't address, and they're going to be a protest vote. They're going to have to be a protest vote. That's about all we can say. But we're really trying. We've been listening to people. We've been trying as much as we can, and so I think this project shows that. And I appreciate the time and effort that's been put into addressing some of the important issues we've heard from not only people who were in favor of it before, but those who voiced some opposition.
I'd add to that, we went completely through, I sat down with the architects and some board members did, and we went through variables that we eliminating this, eliminating that. We even considered shelling out the entire top floor, putting mechanical on the top and bringing courtrooms down. When you do that, you lose a lot of the security issues and access to the courtroom and things like that. So we did look at a lot of changes, even taking out a pod, and end up, we'd have to put in more masonry walls to keep the security to jail and things like that all the way through. And I think we come up with the best idea we can as far as alternatives to providing the services we can, the safety we can, and keeping in mind that we have room for expansion, the future expansion within the facility as it's built now, and on beyond that in years to come, which hopefully I will see them do that someday, but I think this will serve the public well.
So, committee member comments on 1 through 4 here? Anything else? Anything you're, I've heard a couple, I'm not sure you should have lowered the cost that much, but we can live with this. Is there any other feedback on this?
I'd like to commend the board for their hard work. Obviously, you have addressed the concerns that have been expressed, and I think you've done it in a responsible way. And I think it's important to remember also that this 111-year-old courthouse is still functioning, and this new Justice Center probably lasts a good long time as well. So I think the point that Pat makes, that we're taking into account future needs, is a very important one. You're not going to build another jail in 20 years or even 50 years or a new courthouse. So this has got to look that far ahead. And I think the route that you have taken, build what we need now, plan for what we need later in the most cost-efficient way, is the right approach. And I hope that the board will continue its negotiations with the federal government for the land accumulation, because we keep making people, but we don't make any more land. So we're going to need more space at some time. And I think it's very forward-looking and thoughtful to keep that process alive.
Anything else? But we can move on to additional notes. Just a couple things we kind of like to explain to you. We can't summarize all the hours we've met, but Pat alluded to it. We actually talked about shelling out a lot of other things. But there's those sayings about it's pound foolish or whatever. We got very clear on that if we tried to do certain things, this wasn't going to make any mathematical sense 4 or 5 or 10 years from now. We had to negotiate amongst ourselves. If you saw any of those meetings or heard about them, we don't always agree. And I threatened 2 people here that they needed to get in the middle of the room and wrestle. Whichever one won, then we would accept what they were talking about.
You've still separated us.
I've kept Pat and Terrence on opposite sides for a reason. So we considered a lot of ideas and we rejected them. And we didn't do it without, careful consideration. But we wanted to take away space from Lonnie, and it wasn't gonna make any sense. We wanted to take away space from clerk of courts. It wasn't gonna save us any money. I mean, there's some things that you can do on paper but still don't save you any money. It's when you can actually shell something out and not use it. If we took you to the third floor, you'd see what we mean. It's just studs. And so it just wasn't gonna make any sense. So we rejected all of those. We also have always been clear in our mind about the old jail, but we haven't been clear to the public. And that is that the old jail may be desirable land. And if it's desirable at a fair price, the board intends to sell it. And to take every nickel from that and reinvest it in the Justice Center, either in paying down debt, or the parking issue, or remodeling the courthouse, or eventual building out the parts we're not going to build to start with. And I caution the fair price issue. This would not be a fire sale. I mean, we have other county needs that it would make more sense for us as opposed to fire sale the building to put those in there and wait on those projects another day. But we fully intend to sell the jail. We believe there's a good market there, and we will be working on a resolution that makes our intentions to the public known. Just like I think we should consider getting the city to make a resolution that makes their intentions known about vacating Harrison Street to us upon our request. Just so the public knows that we have covered our options here, but we fully intend to sell the jail at a good price and to put all of that money into this project. And that's how we would pay for the parking and the remodel and whatnot. And then finally, the board, we need an answer to this space crisis. And it is a space crisis. We are flirting with serious disaster with the way we've been operating. We don't actually like to talk about that a lot, but it is serious. And as you watch what happens around the world and the country, we get more worried about it regularly. And so we need an answer. So I think there was consensus that we wanted to come back to the public as quickly as we can. And I'll lay out this is a consensus of the board. I'm not just speaking for myself. A couple of the reasons we wanted to do that. 56% of the voters said yes. And we wanted to honor their direction to the county. This was the largest turnout election we've ever had, and 56% of the people who chose to vote on this told us they wanted us to build this space. And so we wanted to honor that from the 56%. Interest rates are at historical lows. There has never been a better time for counties in cities and government in general to invest in infrastructure. And we will likely never see this again in our lifetimes. Johnson County is a transient community, and we wanted the voters who had the opportunity to participate in November to get the opportunity to participate again. The date we were considering would allow the university community to participate in this decision because they participated before. We're very concerned about inflation. The numbers we're basing this on have been given to us by the architects. They do have an inflation in it. It is not a very high inflation because inflation has been hovering around not the lowest we've ever seen, but not very high. And so our numbers will not be firm much longer. And finally, we're going to bring up the auditor's staff, I think, but the final one is if we go forward with the date we're considering that is actually in this fiscal year. That matters because of our budgeting for next year and our planning for next year and what we do as a county. And there are a couple of action items, additional actions that we have discussed significantly, but we don't have anything to present to you. And they're on the last page here. And number one is Our Jessica Peckover's in the back. She's our jail alternatives coordinator. She works for Lonnie. We've asked Jessica and Lonnie to put on paper a multi-year strategic plan for our jail alternatives program. The county has been committed to this significant money in mental health, MECA, jail diversion, drug courts, jail alternatives. We've done a lot, and we intend to do even more with adequate space for that, but we need that documented. And so we will be working as soon as we finish on our budget with Jessica and Lonnie and coming up with a multi-year strategic plan on our jail alternatives program that incorporates all of the parts of the county budget and what we spend in this area. And number two here is, I don't think people understand that the Board of Supervisors have received and participated in a lot of discussions on disproportionate minority contact. We have what we call the Juvenile Justice Youth Development Program, which was an original grant. And when the grant went away, the county decided to continue to fund. And JJYD meets monthly and awards $200,000 on the county's behalf, addressing juvenile courts and juvenile. We are very concerned about this issue, but we don't make a lot of arrests. Lonnie's folks aren't people making arrests. They're not the people in the front line. It's actually the cities. And so we are very concerned about disproportionate minority contact. However, Judge Russell's going to look at me. The minute we have contact, our numbers get a lot better. The courts, once they're in contact, things change dramatically. That's why I'm so glad that Sam Hargadine is in the room right now. This is a partnership, and I think this is a countywide concern we all share, but it actually doesn't impact the courts or the jail as much as people might lead to believe. But the county would like to use our bully pulpit a little bit in our partnership with the cities to have broader discussions about this issue. And that we wanted to do that before. We had been working on it. We just have not been doing a very good job communicating with you. Now, that sums up this entire document. And so the one part I skipped over is why Travis and John Deeth are here. And this is Travis's first day, so we decided not to put him on the hook. But John, the county is limited on when we can put these issues on a ballot.
Yes, there's,
Sure, yeah.
Just one thing I wanted to add, which you talk about law and arrests and so forth. You know, Iowa City takes a brunt of a lot of arrests because there's a lot of population, a lot of activity within the community. But you never hear anything now that law enforcement is spread into the University of Iowa. They have full-time law enforcement. Their numbers are right up there on arrests and so forth. So it's not entirely Iowa City that's making these arrests. And the growth in Coral is added to that.
Sure.
It is a issue that is countywide that we all need to address.
Good, very.
I would add that I want to commend the board for its attention to these issues. These are extremely hard to address. I think the police departments and the board and the city council, the ordinance committee and others are looking at these issues and trying to deal with them. I'm very disappointed that issues of national statistics on racial disproportionality on inmates and so forth have caused some votes against this Justice Center. I'm also concerned that there is some disproportionate impact on youth in the community. And I hope that these issues will continue to be addressed in a collegial way. And I hope that the campus police department will be involved in this, because I think that they, in a sense, are the most junior police agency in the county, and I think they would benefit from these discussions as well. So I hope that they will be involved in these discussions. And I know that all the police agencies and governing bodies in the county will cooperate in looking into these issues. And the product of their labors, of course, brings customers to the courthouse. But I think that, you know, you're correct when you say that the justice system has a way of correcting some of the problems that are there at the outset, which are no longer there at the end. So I thank you for these efforts. I think they're very important. I'm glad also that the chief is here.
Okay, so we can get get back to the document as soon as we let John explain to us what our options are.
Well, there are 3 possible dates that the county can place a funding measure on the ballot in the rest of this year. May 7, August 6, or in combination with the regularly scheduled November 5 city election. And we can't go earlier than May 7 because we had to wait 6 months from the defeat in November. One of the things I've learned over my 15 years in the office is special election turnout is very, very consistent. You almost always see between 12 and 15,000 people coming out to vote. You can also probably figure that it's mostly the same 12 to 15,000 people. And the biggest expense in conducting an election is the election day poll workers, and that varies a lot with the turnout. Countywide special election is not going to be nearly as expensive as a presidential election. I roughed out that whether the election was in May or in August, we'd see a similar turnout level. I plugged in 13,000 roughly. We need to hire 192 workers for that. Now, if we were to hold up until November, it becomes more complicated because the overall turnout is higher, but the billing has to be prorated between the county and the cities. We would split the costs 50-50 with the cities for the city part of the election, and then we would pay 100% for the unincorporated part of the county. So overall, the taxpayers would be paying a little more for a little bit larger election. Turnout would be higher because you'd have city council races getting people out to vote in addition to the Justice Center.
John, just I think two more questions. A lot of people are gonna wonder why we can't hold an election with school board, and we all know the answer to that, but can you answer?
Under Iowa law, nothing can ever be combined with the school election for any reason.
And there may or may not be a special election to replace Sally Stutzman, and Janet, you wanna answer that question?
Right, the requirement for replacing her has time limits on it, and to go beyond 90 days from the time that she leaves is not really acceptable. This county has to have the election if the 3 members, the auditor, recorder, and treasurer opt to have a special election, or if there's a petition to have a special election, you have to do it at the earliest practical time, and having it after April is really too late. So it needs to be held before that. I think there's going to be a special election held to replace her.
And there are certain dates in the code that are reserved for school districts or for cities to have special election. In general, cities and counties can combine, but nothing can combine with the school.
Anything else from the auditor's office, or that pretty much sums up where we are
Answers
on
questions.
elections? Any questions for them? Next month, Travis is on his own. I think he only gets like a week. All right, that is, I lost my voice trying to sum up this document, so I'm done talking about it. Anybody have questions, comments? Let's start with the committee.
I was gonna add, one of the things, as we all talked about, and Sally was part of the discussion, as we talked about May, one of the things we thought is Jim McGarriger's committee spent a lot of money and did a lot of work in terms of trying to educate people about the effort. And that's still somewhat fresh, maybe if you do it again in May. I think August is just a little farther away from what people remember having heard, and in November it's even farther away. And so that was part of our thinking as well, is that, we want some of the efforts that this group has made, that supervisors have made, that some of you have made, we want that to be fresh in people's minds.
I think that's a strong point, only because the town kind of turns over every year. I'm not sure the percentages, but it's not very good.
It also tells people, I think, that, we didn't make this up. It's a real issue, and we had a vote, and the problem's still there. And we're gonna continue to try to address it. So I think that this sends that message pretty loud and clear as well.
I do want a clarification. The committee was a citizens committee that did the campaign.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah.
It was a political.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, sorry.
from the perspective of the voters as well, the May date is the last week of regularly scheduled classes. But early voting would start well before that, so that before people were crunched with finals, they'd have some opportunities to vote. Also, the voter registration files are really fresh right now because everybody updated their registration for the presidential election. Whereas first week of August, everybody will have just moved, which will be that much more work for the voters.
Yeah, I don't like that August date at all.
I favor the May date because I'd like the university, especially the student population, to have their voice heard as well.
I'd just like to say too that if we did go with the May date, people that were here in the fall that got the information that we were presenting would, they still have that. And then if we waited till August, that'd be a new freshman class that would have no idea what these issues about. So I would favor the May date also.
Yes, Dorothy?
I missed the last meeting and had to leave the one before that early, so I may just not know the answer to this, but have we made strides in working with the groups that organized against this? I mean, I think clearly we've heard their concerns in this proposal, but in terms of, you know, kind of getting stakeholders together and seeing where we are on this, is something being done?
Some of the folks are in the room, and so there'll be comments from the public. I'm of the understanding they've been attending committee meetings, and we are very much aware that to whatever degree that the county has any control over the last two items on this document are really important, not only to people in this room, but to the county in general. And we are fully prepared to spend a lot of our money, capital, and time to work on those issues. We've started the process with Jessica and Janet and the disproportionate minority contact, along with all the other committees going on around the cities. But we can't have that completed now.
Right, oh, yeah.
So, right. Anyone else? I mean, we don't want to shortchange you. We can come back to this after we go through the committee reports. I'm not clear how much there is in committee reports.
I just want to mention one thing, that no matter what we do, Johnson County is required, the sheriff is required to take any state, whether it's state patrol or whether it's university security law in their state prison, or individual for the rest of it. They don't necessarily have to take the city, but you wouldn't, I've asked this before, it wouldn't be in the best interest for Iowa City to have a jail or to have another jail or their own to try to operate that because of the cost of the building, which we still have to pay for that in the end. The sheriff today, there was a case on that shows that we can force them to build a county or a city jail, but that can be built back to the county residents. So it's just not in the best interest of the community to try to force that back into the city.
Okay, if there's nothing else right now, I mean, we can come back to it when we get comments from the public. Let's run through the committees real quick and see what's been going on.
I don't think we reported all of these meetings from our last meeting.
Public information outreach.
No new